part of what we teach in Dale Carnegie is really that the foundation of everything in life and success starts with relationship and having strong relationships. And the first part of that is trust. And so in what ways can I build trust? How do I build trust with people? And some of this is commonsensical, things like keeping your promises and so forth. But part of it also is it just goes to who I am. You know, who am I being, and then what am I doing?
Tonight's amazing guest, the CEO and president of Dale Carnegie, Joe Hart. Joe is a man that we fought for months to get on this program, and he agreed. We appreciate it, and it's a very, very special treat to have Joe Hart in studio. Joe, thank you so much for joining me here on Mind Your Business.
It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for that gracious and generous introduction.
It's true. Hey, it's true. Right? How important is it to say the truth in the workforce?
It's everything. But thank you. Nonetheless, I appreciate that. Thank you.
But you're very, very welcome. Well, Mr. Hart, perhaps tell us about yourself, and I'll just preface why this question is so important. Today, you're the president and CEO of Dale Carnegie worldwide. Let me make sure I get this right. Dale Carnegie is in 90 countries, okay, follow me here, and services 400 of the Fortune 500 companies. How often do I have someone in studio like that? By the way, the listenership have come to expect that I have great guests. I know please don't take this interview for granted. Make sure to sit at the edge of your seats for this one. You service 400 of the Fortune 500 companies. Wow.
Well, I mean, we're very fortunate to have a great team of people around the world. As you mentioned, in almost 90 countries and 106 years in business, 200 operations around the world. And we've been very fortunate over a very long period of time to really have the opportunity to work with great companies, great leaders, great teams, and people really who are trying to bring out the best in themselves and the people with whom they work.
So now I'm going to ask, because especially in today's day and age, the millennials kind of dream that by 22, 23, they'll be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but something like that. And, today you're the CEO of Dale Carnegie. What was the journey like?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible for me even to think about. I started out as a young man. My father introduced me to the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie's best-selling book for 80 years. And, as a teen, it was a phenomenal book. It really had a huge impact. And so I went on to college, went on to law school, became a lawyer. And as a young lawyer, decided I wanted to take a Dale Carnegie course. This is back in 1995, and just really was committed to growth and career growth and personal growth. And that course had a tremendous life-changing impact on me. It changed my vision for myself as much as I was, I think, a good lawyer. I wasn't necessarily a happy lawyer, and it really challenged me. And ultimately, I left the practice of law. I started a business that was an e-learning company in 2000. And actually, Dale Carnegie was my first client. The whole concept of that company started with the idea that Dale Carnegie, you take a class or a program, and it's awesome. And then the question is, well, what do I apply afterward? How much am I really realizing? And so I developed a system to really help apply the Dale Carnegie principles and turned it into a business. And Dale Carnegie became a client. We built that e-learning company with other great clients, McGraw Hill and others, and I sold it in 2005 and then had an opportunity to start another company that was a national health promotion company that was based on the technology we had developed in that first program. So that company is still today a great company, Asset Health. It's based in Michigan, works with companies of 1,000 to 100,000 employees and put wellness programs in place. But I was recruited in 2000, late 14, early 15, to become the CEO of Dale Carnegie, and went through a very rigorous process. And I moved my wife, my 6 kids, and I from Michigan to Long Island, and probably would not have done that for any other company other than Dale Carnegie.
Wow. First of all, tell us about your children.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for asking. My oldest daughter is 21, so I've got 4 daughters and twin sons. 21, 20, 17, 14 are my girls, and I've got twin sons who are 12.
God bless.
I know. Thank you. And you've got a big family as well.
Yes, thank God. So. Thank God, 8. And one is here joining me here in studio.
That's a blessing.
Absolutely. And by the way, of course, I drank the Kool-Aid. I took the immersion course. By the way, you could find out more information by visiting dalecarnegie.com. That's the simplest way to find a location that's in your neighborhood, because really there are Dale Carnegie locations, as we said, in 90 countries, and you're probably in every major city in the United States.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. So I took the immersion course and highly recommend it. If you want to get ahead, you want to improve all your skills, interpersonal, sales, in every area, there's no question that, now I'm not going to ask Joe if you give a money back guarantee, but it's as good as a money back guarantee. If someone doesn't see the value or is not able to implement it, then I don't know how to finish that sentence.
Yeah, I can't even think of anyone who's asked. I mean, it is something that I'm grateful for, is that people, I've traveled all over the world. I mean, I was in China earlier this year, and I'm meeting people, different countries, speak a different language. They've taken the Dale Carnegie program, and they're just talking about how it's impacted their lives. I talk to youth. We have Dale Carnegie programs for teens, and this is a tough age for kids around the world.
Right.
People deal with self-image issues and stress and social media and so forth. And part of what Dale Carnegie believed is that every single person has inherent greatness, and really people are often capable of so much more than they believe. And so what a Dale Carnegie course is about is helping unlock that, helping people have better relationships, more self-confidence, being better at communications and public speaking, and being better leaders. And so for kids, to be able to see these kids who are almost crying in terms of just talking about how they were bullied or whatnot, and now they've got a vision for themselves. It's powerful, and not just teens, but clearly adults and companies, and it is a program that really believes in the best in people, and it's about helping people unlock that greatness.
Now let's talk about one of the challenges that small businesses face. We know Fortune 500 companies, to a large degree, have a training program in place, whether it's Dale Carnegie's program on interpersonal skills and sales, et cetera, or what they train within the company in terms of how to interact with the computers and IT and et cetera. But I believe studies have been done that over 80% of small businesses do not have any type of formal training in place.
That's true.
And it takes, I'm afraid to say, sometimes decades till they realize. Perhaps you could discuss that, and at what point does it hit small businesses that say, hey, if I get my people trained, we could really scale?
Well, and I would say, too, Yitzhak, that there are a lot of companies that may not have formal training programs, but we do work with a lot of companies that are, say, under 500 or 1,000 employees, some is 50 or less. And so what they will, many companies have the desire, they want to help their teams be more effective, they want to get to the next level and so forth, and not really sure how to do that. So they may not be able to afford an internal team, or may choose even to go outside because often you can't get Dale Carnegie other than through us.
Right.
So
right.
But a lot of people, I think, are starting to see that, particularly now. You talked about millennials. And, across the world, people talk about, how do I engage my employees? How do I keep my people? How do I invest in my people? How do I get more? So many times companies are growing. They're promoting people who really haven't had experience as managers. So they need to do something. And I think a lot of companies are starting to really recognize it even more so than in the past.
My guest is none other than the president and CEO of Dale Carnegie, Joe Hart. Joe, thank you again for taking of your hectic schedule. I don't know how you have time to breathe, but that's just for a different show.
I'm delighted to be here. It's always a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for honoring our listeners by joining me.
No, thank you.
It's
got a great show.
Thank you. You
didn't mention, this is my second time on the show.
That's correct.
So
that's correct.
It was so good, and I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you invited me back.
Of course.
Delighted to be back.
Let's talk about Dale Carnegie, the series of courses. And of course, my understanding is that you have different centers throughout the world, franchises that teach the course. And then you also offer to go in within a Fortune 500 company. Perhaps explain how that works.
Yeah, and just to clarify, too, it's not necessarily a Fortune 500 company. It could be a company of any size that might bring us in to do an in-house program. So it might be something that they want for their team. And sometimes, a lot of companies struggle with cultural issues. How do I get people working together more effectively? I've got things that, ultimately it comes down to people and relationships. If my people aren't really working well together, that's going to hamper everything else. So we might come in and do programs, might be leadership-based programs or programs for new leaders, emerging leaders. Could be high-impact presentation programs. So a lot of people really are nervous about presenting. They've got to really, could be someone who's starting to present early in their career, could be a CEO who just really is on a big stage. And so Dale Carnegie really was the innovator in this area, especially around public speaking. We had great programs around that. The flagship program is the Dale Carnegie course, which really touches on a lot of different things. It's about interpersonal skills and leadership and stress and worry, which is something a lot of people struggle with, of course. So a lot of different parts but that course, if you Google like a Warren Buffett, like when he's talking about the course that he took that really was a game changer for him, it was the Dale Carnegie course. So many people will start with the Dale Carnegie course.
That's the immersion?
Well, so the immersion, we offer the program in different formats. You might take a 3-day format. There's an 8-week format, and some markets also offer a 12-week format. So
it's just a matter. I hear it's that same course, that classic Dale Carnegie course. The immersion is you just take it 3 days in a row, bang, bang.
Exactly right. So you've got a 3-day version, 8-week version, 12-week version is offered in some markets. And also, just to clarify too, we do have sales programs. So we'll work often with sales teams that are really trying to drive higher performance and build better relationships with potential customers.
So again, I want to clarify, even though, I'm just saying it just for the wow factor, even though Dale Carnegie offers, they service 400 of the Fortune 500 companies, they service companies of all sizes.
We do.
And I would say if you're a small business, we have many small businesses out there, and if you're in touch with them, if perhaps it doesn't make sense to have a trainer come to your course, send 2-3 of your top people to take the course at your headquarters.
That's exactly right. So we've got, as you mentioned, operations all over the United States and multiple other countries. And so if it's a individual person or a small group, they can go take a public class and take it with other people. If it's a large enough group, we'll come and do it in-house for a company. So there's different options for this.
A minute ago, you touched on something that is such a crucial point for anyone in business, and that is goal setting. Okay. I'm taking a deep breath because, we all have goals. We all have a vision. We all have ambition. But what's your recommendation? How does someone be able to, put it down and then to really start hitting their targets?
Yeah, the question of vision is such an important one, and because I think a lot of us know what we want to do, or maybe we've got a vague idea about it, but have we really taken the time to sit down and write it down? And some of this is less about complexity and more about just discipline, right? Actually having the discipline to write down and say, this is my vision, put a stake in the ground, this is what I stand for, and then really, what is my plan to make that happen, to have those goals? We know so often that people will have goals and New Year's resolutions and things like that.
And then it's the next year. And
the next year. And what happened to that one? But we have found time and time again, and this is one of the major parts of a Dale Carnegie course, is we will work with people to define your vision and say, if it's 6 months from now, put this in terms that are not I will be, I am. It's a present, it's happened. So let's because if there's an emotional component in this, that's really when we talk about behavioral change, sometimes people just think about, well, I need to do this, or how do I do this? But is there really that emotional commitment? So we really believe that emotional change and behavior change is what leads to performance change. And so if people have that vision, they take the time, they write it down, they have the consistency to go back and look at it, but they've got to have that strong why. They've got to say, what am I committed to? And even if it's only one thing, but just to be committed to that one thing and to go for it.
How important is it to have it written down on paper?
I'd say it's critical. We've heard examples of people who will write themselves a check and put it in their wallet or whatnot. But in my own experience, if I have a goal but I don't write it down, I'm pulled in too many directions every single day. There's distractions of the phone and email and social media and all kinds of things, and family and work. For me to be able to say these are the things I'm going for, and I would advise people to keep it simple and short, right? So it doesn't have to be 10 things. It doesn't have to have 20 subparts. Just, what is that clear? We talk about SMART goals, of course, but what are you really committed to achieving? And achieve that. And once you achieve that, do the next one.
Momentum.
Absolutely.
You speak around the world, and one of your topics or one of the concepts that you'd speak about is the global leadership crisis. Perhaps you could share your vision on that with the audience.
Well, I started talking about this on different stages. I think the first time I talked about it was in 2015 in Brazil. And, Brazil's a country that has had significant turmoil, as our country has, and many have, around, political leadership, social, business leadership, and so forth. And really what we're talking about is a breakdown of trust. I mean, we expect our leaders to perform in a certain way, and they don't. And often it's for personal gain. So part of what we teach in Dale Carnegie is really that the foundation of everything in life and success starts with relationship and having strong relationships. And the first part of that is trust. And so in what ways can I build trust? How do I build trust with people? And some of this is commonsensical, things like keeping your promises and so forth. But part of it also is it just goes to who I am. Who am I being, and then what am I doing? And so, am I being empathetic? Am I showing appreciation for you? Am I listening to you? Am I respecting you? And so, so often we're so focused on ourselves and what we're doing. And yet, if relationship is critical, how am I building a better relationship with the people with whom I work, with the people in my family, with the people in my community, and so forth? And there are principles. The Dale Carnegie principles are things that we will often talk about. That really go to, here are some things that people can do to build better relationships and build trust.
You know what? I'm going to pop the question. Will you agree to come back on?
I get
it's
nervous.
a surprise question.
I get nervous when you ask me.
Will you join me again in the future?
Of course.
All right. Thank you. Okay, enough with the tough questions.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed the show. It's great. You do a great job.
Thank you. How can a leader build trust and respect from their team?
So that's a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think it's multifaceted. It's not necessarily one thing. We talk about, who am I being, right? So am I a leader who is authentic? Am I a leader who is empathetic? Am I a leader who, really communicates? And one of the things we talk about in Dale Carnegie is that people support a world they help create. Am I talking to my people? Am I listening to my people? Am I asking them what they think? Or am I simply, directing them and saying, this is what you're going to do? Right. I mean, there's a time and a place for different types of leadership styles. And at the same time, a leader who, who works to build relationship with the people who listens, who appreciates, is going to be much more successful at building trust and building, something that's going to work.
In fact, this leads me, one of the questions that we had from the audience, Mark from Monroe, New Jersey, okay, and his question is, when do you need to apologize and when do you need to appreciate? And just to explain the question, let's say someone walks into a conference. They're walking into a conference room, there's a meeting in place, and they're 5 minutes late. Should one say, I'm sorry for being late? Should they apologize? Or should they rather say, I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the fact that you began without me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it could be either or. I wouldn't say that's necessarily a rule of thumb, and it certainly depends upon the situation and who the person is and so forth. But, one of the things that we've seen in our research that really irritates people and demotivates people is when someone does something wrong, they make a mistake, and they don't own up to it. So if this is a consistent pattern of behavior, that I'm always late, then that's going to be an issue. But in a case where I'm 5 minutes late, I think it's perfectly appropriate to say, hey, apologize, I'm late. I really appreciate your patience. You could say both of those things, and we do say, in Dale Carnegie, we talk about really giving people honest and sincere appreciation to the extent that people are being patient. Thank you for your patience.
Great. Moving back, how can a business really understand its customers? And what I mean by that is, what type of lessons does a company need to give over to their team to empower them to make the right decisions on behalf of the company? Now, it's a bit of a loaded question because, remember, employees have to service the customers, so you have to provide great customer service, but you also have to look out for the company itself so that their values are being met and their financial goals are being met as well.
Yeah, so the question really, though, is about, what advice would you give to a company in terms of how they lead their people to support their customers?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think part of it is, again, it's thinking about the customer, right? The customer pays our paychecks. We're here because of the customer. And so in our objective, and this is something we talk about within our company too, is how do we ensure that our customer is delighted? How do we make sure that we're really engaging and so forth? So it starts with having the right attitude and really that recognition of the importance of the customer. And that probably goes without saying. And yet some people might be annoyed. The customer calls and asks for something. Oh gosh, there we go again. And sometimes there are customers who are difficult and so forth. But it does start with mindset. It starts with leadership defining a culture that says to the team, this is what we stand for. We stand for exceptional customer service. We stand for whatever it might be, solving our customers' problems. And here's why, right? It's always about focusing on the why and then giving the skills and the techniques, because many people, I think, want to serve their customers well, may not know how. How do I deal with a challenging customer? How do I deal with someone who's going to call and get angry? I mean, so part of it is equipping people, equipping the team so that they know how to be successful in their job. So there's a mindset and there's also a skill set.
I want to move to corporate storytelling. I saw on the website Dale Carnegie is offering a exclusive course on corporate storytelling. And we know how now storytelling has been around since the beginning of time.
Sure.
The Bible's all built on storytelling. Perhaps you could, but now it's coined corporate storytelling. That's the phrase used. It's such a big topic. Perhaps you could discuss it and how critical it is for a company to craft their unique corporate story.
Yeah, so what we talk about here is connection. Really, in what ways how do I connect with people and really and build consensus? I mean, Dale Carnegie talks about how to win friends and influence people. And one thing that unifies people across geographies, races, religions, and whatnot is who we are as people and this nature of storytelling. We connect. People will stop if I said, Chuck, I want to tell you a story. I mean,
right. We have all the time in the world for that.
Right. So, but in a corporate environment, I mean, the same thing is true. We still can communicate in a powerful way if we can communicate a story or a message, whether it's through an example or an analogy or whatever it might be. So that's part of what that course is about, is in a business environment, how do I communicate? How do I tell, and how do I tell an effective story, right? I mean, how do I make it not too long, not too short, not too much detail, and so forth? And part of what we talk about is, there's stories that are my personal stories that I can tell, I've earned the right to talk about and excited about and so forth, and those can be powerful. And there might be stories also that I can tell that will make a point and help you see my perspective and so forth. So, but that's a lot of what that course is. It's a pretty cool program.
Are there any, just offhand, any other tips on that? Like you touched on something very powerful, is that a CEO may have the right to tell his own story, which may have value, and sometimes it's the corporate story or a parable. Perhaps you could still elaborate on that, because this is such an important topic for people. Yeah,
I mean, again, especially as a CEO myself, whether I'm speaking to my own team or to teams around the world or to and someone who might come to an event where I'm speaking, it is about how do I engage an audience? How do I give something of value? So I'm thinking to myself about that audience. And so if it's a corporate message, being able to tell a story that helps people see and say, I understand, I get it now. But I mean, so that's really what this is about. But the best CEOs, the most effective in interacting with people, and not just CEOs, but leaders of all levels are those who can engage people, and often they're really good at telling those stories. So we think, and I've gone through programs like this, programs like this before, and part of what we do in a Dale Carnegie course is, and it's amazing how people can light up and really respond.
I guess really the elephant in the room and the core of a Dale Carnegie course is the emotional aspect.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about the importance for people to understand that decision? I'm not sure if the statistics are 80 or 90% of our decisions are emotional, even though we may not admit it. We're like, but at the end of the day, emotions count. My question is EQ versus IQ. Is there any type of stat or data that you've seen that EQ is more important than IQ, or vice versa?
I don't know. It's a little bit like asking, do I need water or air? I mean, I
think, a great answer.
Yeah, both of those things, are pretty important. Although you can have a very high IQ and have a low EQ and have a real problem. You can also have a high EQ and maybe a lower IQ, and you can be very effective. So, I mean, both are important, but the one thing that we know about EQ is that EQ can be, we can learn to adapt. We can learn to interact with people more effectively. We can learn to be empathetic. There are people, lots of stories. There's stories in How to Win Friends about, people who were stubborn, difficult, couldn't make a sale because they weren't listening to their customers, and they developed better EQ. They learned to do that. That's one of the things that we do in the Dale Carnegie courses. So that's why relationships can be changed. People get better results. So we believe if you want to get those results, you have to improve your EQ.
I'm going to go to another question that came from the audience, and this is from David from Boca Raton. Now, even though we broadcast throughout the Newark, New Jersey metro area, and you can pick us up. I've heard people tell us they could pick us up in Boston. Someone picked us up in, I think it was Pittsburgh, out in the west. Someone as far south as Baltimore in the south. So the range is quite strong. However, there are many people that pick us up on the app, on MYB Radio or WABCRadio.com. So this question comes from David in Boca Raton. He says, how do I handle a fellow staff member when your responsibilities put you in a superior position of another person who is your senior? In fact, in that case, I'm going to say it publicly, for whatever the circumstances were, this person is in has a responsibility. They're in a more senior position than someone who could be their grandparent.
Sure.
Man, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a tough, it could be a tricky situation, tough situation for sure. And, one of the things that we teach is a first principle, if you will. It's actually our principle 17, but it's try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. So recognizing that we're working together, and so how are you seeing this? How are you seeing me? And how do I handle that situation? I'm going to try to have some level of understanding. Clearly I've got a job to do. You've got a job. We've got to work together and get the results that we have to get. But I'm going to have a sensitivity to the fact that if I come in and start telling you, Yitzhak, here's what you got to do, and so forth, that may cause some friction. So
may?
Yeah. Well,
we're saying it politely. Yeah. It will.
It could go south pretty fast.
Yeah.
But in a situation like that, just recognizing that you got a person who's probably proud of the work that they've done. They've been there for a long time. They're senior to you. Maybe it is to start by asking them, their opinion. Hey, we've got the situation here, whatever, down at the plant, and how would you recommend that we handle that? So you
smart.
Engage them. You start by engaging, and I may have said this earlier. If I didn't, I'll say it now. People support a world they help create. So that's one of the things that we teach. So, by listening, by appreciating, by demonstrating that level of respect and understanding, you can start to build a bridge. So not always easy, but beginning in a friendly way is another thing, and just but that would be my advice: is start with. One of the things that Dale Carnegie, really talked about was you've always got to think about your audience. You've got to think about, if I'm giving a talk, who is that audience? Because frankly, what is the audience cares about the audience? That's what they care about. So they don't care about me. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. So how do I communicate and connect with that audience? And whether that's an audience of 10,000 or an audience of one, it should always be on our minds.
So this brings up, you mentioned earlier that you just came back from China or a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
year, yep.
did you how's your Chinese? How do you communicate with different audiences around the world?
Yeah, it was my Chinese is not strong. It's a difficult language for me. I found the Chinese people were tremendously gracious. I had a really wonderful trip. I enjoyed it greatly, and I had translators to help and so forth. But clearly going back to the point of the audience, just there are cultural differences, and part of what I wanted to do is be sensitive to those cultural differences, so that something that I might do in America that might be completely innocuous could be offensive to someone someplace else. So having that awareness was certainly important.
So how important is it for a CEO to get that training before they even hit the ground in another country?
It's vital. It could be the difference between being successful and being completely unsuccessful, going down in flames. So in this particular case, I was very well prepared. I had good people to advise me in terms of just some of the cultural differences. And again, the people were absolutely terrific. It was one of the best, trips, warmest, greetings I've had. So it was really tremendous.
Let's talk about the Dale Carnegie brand. Building an iconic brand. That's a big achievement. I know you're with the company, now, close to 5 years?
4.
4 years.
Just about 4 years, yeah.
What does it mean to scale such an iconic brand?
Well, fortunately, there were 102 years in the business before I got here. and so many people know the name How to Win Friends and Influence People. They know the name Dale Carnegie. They know someone who's taken a Dale Carnegie program. So having had the benefit of a good brand to begin with has been important. But part of what I've wanted to do, and one of my major objectives, is really to energize the brand, because there is a generation that doesn't know the brand. So, we are an iconic brand, a trusted brand for people who know us, and there are a lot of people who don't know us. So one of our objectives, we've actually gone through a very significant international rebranding exercise. When you think about rebranding a 100-plus-year-old business, it was a huge undertaking, and thankfully it really went tremendously well. Just really excited about it.
I'm going to go to a question that came from the audience. Michal from Brooklyn. How is it possible that any type of person can benefit from a Dale Carnegie course?
Yeah, so my personal perspective is that life is about growth. Life is about personal growth and getting better. And so, the question is, what do I believe that? Do people believe that they can grow? And if they do believe that, again, Dale Carnegie's been around for over 100 years. Why would that be?
Right.
So and Dale Carnegie has been popular with young people, older people, people starting their career, people who are senior in their career, people in different languages, cultures, races, religions, all over the world. So one would have to ask, why? Why is that the case?
Right.
And the answer is that there is something here that is about helping each individual who comes to our programs really see something in themselves, unlock something in themselves, and just, even if it's one thing, in many cases, it's transformative. It's very significant. So really, it's wherever someone is, as long as they're open to that possibility. And you took one of the programs. You probably saw people in your class who may have not even been able to say their name in the beginning of the room, but by the time they were done, they're up there, they're confident, they're a different person. I
remember distinctly there was one person in the course who was so, I guess the right way to say is tight. They were so tight on day one, and I took the 3-day immersion course. So day one was just like, and the instructor was doing a great job at trying to wear the person down. But again, in a friendly way, involving the person, making sure that they wouldn't just storm out like, I can't take this anymore. This is, And by the second day, the person saw it. By the third day, I was like, whoa, what did you, did you just change a chip in the brain? Like, how did you get the person to do that? And they were actively, that person was engaging with the audience. And on day one, they were stiff.
It's about, from my experience, so much of this is about self-awareness. It's a safe environment where people see other people standing up and kind of getting out of their comfort zones.
Yeah.
It's very supportive. And yet people are pushed. They're uncomfortable. But they see themselves doing, or they see somebody else. It's like, oh my gosh,
right?
Look at that, and this is really working, So then they are open to that themselves. But it's the right coaching, it's the right environment, it's the right. Dale Carnegie was brilliant. He was really an innovator when it came to understanding human personality and performance and so forth.
Let's go to one of the most critical business functions, and that is the salesperson.
Sure.
Right? Now, at the end of the day, companies live and die based on the sales, right? I mean, okay. What are some tips perhaps you could share for someone to become a great salesperson?
Yeah, it's funny. Dale Carnegie was a salesperson, started out his career in sales, and a lot of his program was really around that idea. And one of the things he said was, that salespeople could be, so much more effective if they were simply focused on, listening to the customer, understanding what the customer wants, instead of trying to tell and convince and so forth. So, I mean, in my experience, I spent a lot of time in sales as well, and a lot of times people start a meeting, their arms are closed. They, no one wants to be sold, but they do want to buy. They've got a need. So really, taking the time to get to know the person and understand what it is that they need, and really with the mindset of service. I mean, I'm here to serve, and maybe this is not the right opportunity, and we won't do business, and that's okay. But if I can help serve, then that's what I want to do. And that, in my mind, sales is it's a noble profession. It really is about, it has the opportunity to help people in a very significant way, but you can't help people unless you understand what it is that they need.
Such great advice. And also, as you touched on, to know when to walk away. If, let's say, you during the conversation, during the pitch, you kind of get the feeling that they don't exactly need your services at this time, be a big boy, as they say, and
well, and imagine that, right? You're talking, if you say to someone, you know what, I don't think that I can help you right now. I mean, how are they going to feel? They're going to respect that.
That's
Wait a
right.
second.
That's right.
And if that's the truth, then why not say that? Go find someone who needs what you have. There are plenty of people out there. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I'm not saying that you a salesperson walks, leaves the room with the first no,
Right.
Because that's part of it also. But if you realize that there's not a fit, then maybe that's one that you move on to the next one.
Well, here's a question that came from Josh from Manhattan. If you could give just one tip, one piece of advice, what would you say is the key to success?
Gosh, this question, oh my gosh, this question is such a hard question. I'd say buy How to Win Friends and Influence People. Read the book.
Number one.
Take a Dale Carnegie course. No, but the reason it's a hard question is because I think about all the different directions that it could go. One tip, and I think what Dale Carnegie might say, is that everything starts with our attitude, our outlook. And, there's a quote, Dale Carnegie collected quotes from great people, and he compiled them into a scrapbook. And you can only get this book if you win it in a class. And, one of the quotes is from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, and he said that, our lives are what our thoughts make it. Our lives are what our thoughts make it. And Dale Carnegie also talked about you can have two people in the exact same situation, one who's happy and one who's miserable, and the difference is our thoughts. So for people to have an awareness of how they think and to really be open to the positive, he talked about count your blessings, not your curses. What are the things that I can be grateful for right now? What can I build on? And in any one of us, no matter how bad the situation is, we've got a lot of things to be positive about. So do I focus on those, or do I focus on the things I don't have? And so that mindset, if there's a second thing that I might also mention, it's around fear. And there's a great quote, I'm not exactly sure who said it, that everything you want is on the other side of fear. And once we realize that life is going to involve things that are uncomfortable, and that what I want is going to require me to get out of my comfort zone and confront fears, that's when amazing things can happen in our lives.
Are there any secrets? Now, again, there are tens of thousands of listeners here, so I don't mean to put you on the spot here. Is there anything up that we should be aware of in the future and the days ahead for the Dale Carnegie organization?
Well, we have a lot of things that we are focused on as a business, many of which are around our existing products. We've just launched some new products, new programs around leadership and leadership for new leaders and unlocking your leadership potential and so forth. But I would expect to see a lot more even technology integration in the years to come in terms of some of the things that we're doing to be connected to our customers in ways to provide content to them in ways that maybe we haven't in the past. So that's one thing we'll be focused on even more in the years to come.
Wow, the time flies.
It does.
The time flies.
I can't believe it.
We're about to wrap up. What an amazing, amazing show. And in case you're just tuning in, I don't know where you were, but no worries. By Tuesday morning, this entire episode will be up on the channel that's dedicated to the show, mybradio.com, mybradio.com. Perhaps just two last points. My final question is going to be a takeaway, but perhaps we could even share some of the Dale Carnegie principles.
Sure.
Just in a nutshell. They're so valuable. Perhaps you could share them.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's funny. Our very first principle, which is one that, I took the Dale Carnegie course, gosh, 1995. So what is that? Long time ago.
Goes back. Goes back.
Is don't criticize, condemn, or complain, and that could be misconstrued because clearly there are times we have to give people feedback and so forth. But but if we want to be a friendlier person, if we want to build stronger relationships, how do we feel when we're around people who are complaining all the time, criticizing us? Like, oh my gosh, it's enough
Toxic.
already. Yeah. So, but I try to catch myself with my kids. My kids will tell me, unfortunately, that I'm not very good at this principle. I'm working on it. But the reality is that if I can find a reason to praise, that one of our principles is praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation. It's not a commonly used word. Approbation, lavish in your praise. But but the point is, praise. If we see something good, if my daughter comes home and she's got 3 A's and 2 B's and the C, let me praise her for the A's and the B's and maybe encourage her on the C. But what are the things that we're focused on? We have the ability in our interactions with other people to bring out greatness in them or just to be negative and so forth. So my encouragement would be, and people can download one of these, the Golden Books. So the Dale Carnegie Golden Book has the 30 Principles from How to Win Friends and 30 Principles from How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It's a free download on the website, DaleCarnegie.com. Take one of our classes. We've got physical books as well, and I carry one with me everywhere I go. It's just a good reminder. And so, yeah.
What final takeaway, and I want to go from the vantage point of vision. So many of us, certainly every individual in the C-suite has vision. What final takeaway could you suggest that will empower an individual to think vision, think of the days ahead, think of the years ahead, so that they stay focused on that? What final takeaway can you share in that respect?
One of the things that causes me to remind myself of my vision a lot is just the reality that, life is short as much as, and this is the life that we have. And, so why not do all we can with the day that we have to make the most of that life and to be intentional. It's one of the big things we teach in our programs is to be intentional, live an intentional life. And if you do that, then you can achieve great things and have amazing, happiness. So that's what I would say.
I love the honor of interviewing C-level executives and sharing their great advice and perspective on Mind Your Business. I'd love to get your feedback. Post it in the comments below and subscribe. You'll never miss an edition of Mind Your Business.